today we are honored to host three experts on this topic. We have Dr. Michelle Aldrich, Wyoming State CTE Director from Wyoming Department of Education, Jim Johnson, Regional Admission Counselor, North Dakota State College of Science, and Aaron Salisak, Director of Outreach and Recruitment, Inver Hills Community College. Welcome. On behalf of the Navigate 2020 event sponsor, GoToCollege Fairs, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our panelists and thank you so much again for taking the time to present on this important topic. Let's begin.
All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're super excited to have you with us. As Scott has said, this is an expert panel from folks across the heartland, Minnesota, North Dakota, and Wyoming. We're honored to have you with us tonight. I think I speak for Jim, Michelle, and myself in saying that. Our session, It's Not Your Grandparents' Career and Technical Education, is going to focus on a number of things, but the theme that you're going to hear throughout is the emphasis in two-year community and technical colleges, as well as the function, role, history, and so on that we play in the American higher education landscape. I actually will kick us off with a little bit of that history. So Michelle, if we could advance the slide. So the first community college in the country was Joliet Junior College in Illinois. And since its inception, it's really been focused on a number of things, but thematically it's focused on serving families and students regionally. We are open access institutions by nature. So with the exception of maybe a few managed programs here and there, which we'll address throughout the conversation tonight, for the most part, insofar as a student has obtained high school graduation or a GED or an equivalent of various sorts, they are welcome to apply and will be admitted and able to move forward with their area of choice. We also have kept core to our mission affordability. There are a few things that have gone up as much since the 80s as higher education, unfortunately, but thankfully, two-year institutions, be they community colleges or technical colleges, regardless of the award one is seeking or the purpose one is seeking it for, be it a certificate, a diploma, an associate's two-year degree, or just to upskill, you know, maybe, especially as we're looking at this current pandemic, maybe folks are being displaced from work and just needing to pick up a few things here and there. We know that is the role that we serve. We are an incubator for the local community. That being said, we do serve students from across the lifespan. It's not uncommon in any given day for me to have a conversation with a 14-year-old student wanting to try to take Calculus 2 through the post-secondary enrollment options program. And then in my very next meeting of the day, speak with a 70-year-old who had one class left for his or her or their degree and wanting to come back to fulfill that. As a matter of fact, those two examples are real examples I had from the last few weeks. So it's a regular day at open access two-year institutions that serve a variety of needs. The other thing that I want to somewhat dispel, you might have heard a lot of myths about community and technical colleges, and hopefully one of them that I can do away with is that of the accreditation of faculty and teachers. In nearly all instances, as you're looking at studying, whether that be for a trade or a technical program, or it be for taking care of your generals, your liberal arts, to your associates programming to move on to transfer afterwards, you're going to be taught by experts either in the industry and or by those with terminal degrees in their areas of study. The students who often start at a two-year school and then transfer to four-year school statistically do just as well and often better than students who started initially at those four-year institutions of choice. I think my panelists and I could all go into a number of theories and reasons for why that's the case. We're happy to entertain that later. But in the interest of time, we'll move on. It's just an interesting statistic that hasn't changed over the decade and a half that I've been engaged in this work, and many of us longer than that too. The last thing before we turn to some examples of what constitutes technical education is we know that we, and again, kind of hearkening back to that idea of being an incubator for regional local economies and individuals who want to stay close to home and get an affordable, good education, we are responsive to the workforce needs. So the fact that we know that the economy is somewhat fluid, but we are in some ways an inverse relationship to that and have to be fluid as well. We will adjust our studies, we will connect with our workforce partners and industry partners, and we will ask them, what is it that you need? What is it that you anticipate you will need in the next year, 2 years, 3 years? What is it in terms of industry areas that are going to be deeply impacted by our current state of affairs, and how can we help students and families and learners re-engage with either, again, a new skill set or retooling, refining, upskilling is another term that's often used. How can we serve you and make sure that our students and folks within the immediate vicinity of campus are served well? Michelle, next slide. Thank you. So I think, you know, if we were to poll the audience and ask what when you think of career and technical education, what are some of the things that come to mind? We'd probably hear many of what has kind of historically been dubbed the trades, right? So welding, HVAC, construction electricity, maybe agriculture, that's one that's listed here, construction management, and so on. I think at the end of the day, you can start your education at a two-year institution, regardless of which state's higher education infrastructure you're in, and you can get a lucrative career by the end of 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, however long it's taking you to obtain that two-year degree. If you're doing part-time, it could be, you know, 5 years for 60 credit associate's degree or less. But point in case, you'll see nursing, pharmacy technician. One of my favorite within our Minnesota state system is inland underwater welding. If you go out to the great state of New York, you might see up in the Finger Lakes region studies in viniculture. Again, it's very regionally and locally based, and it's trying to mirror the demands and the expectations of our workforce and what they think students will be employed in by gainful employment after they're done with that degree of choice. So again, be it accounting, business management, any of these skilled trades, you can start. After 2 years, you might be looking at either direct hire, because as some of my colleagues will talk about later, there's a continuum. So you might be doing your internship while you're literally taking your coursework, and then that employer might hire you on afterwards. But you could be looking at an area where you're making, and this is not uncommon, 60 to 80 to even more than that, $1,000 a year annually. We have some programs from my institution, and we're trying to keep it very general tonight, so I'm not going to speak to Inver Hills Community College in depth, but I know we have several program areas where our students are literally getting hired before they're done with their Associates of Applied Science degrees because they're in such high demand in the Twin Cities metro region here. I want to turn it over for a second to see if either of my colleagues, Jim or Michelle, had any additional insight or anything else that they wanted to add in particular to this slide as we're talking about the various types of career and technical programs that are offered nationally or even within our own regions.
You're doing a great job, Aaron.
Thanks, Jim. Michelle, I think we could probably advance to the next slide.
Well, thank you, Aaron. I think that Aaron made an excellent point that all of the career and technical education areas have multiple opportunities to do some schooling, to get out there and work. And then if you decide you want to come back and you want to continue on to a four-year degree or graduate school, that those opportunities exist as well. And that's what we mean by multiple on and off ramps for a lot of these career choices. But all of those are dependent upon you finding your passion and what interests you. And you can spend a lot of time and a lot of money pursuing the degree or the studies that a parent may want you to pursue or that you feel obligated to pursue. But what's really important is to find what is your passion, what are your interests, and then to seek out the education and the institution that's going to help to further that interest or that passion. Many times in junior high or middle grades, right around 8th grade, you may have done an interest inventory with your counselor at your school or in a class that you had to find out what your interest and your passions were. And we know that those interests may have changed over time. Hopefully you've done an interest inventory more recently than 8th grade. As you're getting ready to pursue an education at a post-secondary institution, we know it becomes really important to know what you want to study so that you don't end up changing majors multiple times and spending a lot of time and money needlessly. There's an excellent interest inventory that you can do for free that is you'll find at mynextmove.org, and that may be one that you want to take a look at. You also might want to think about, what do you love? If you could do anything you wanted to do and be paid to do it, what would that be? There might also be some things you would never do. If you're afraid of body fluids and blood, health sciences and nursing may not be your thing, and that's perfectly okay. And that's just as important to know going into a program of study as what you're passionate about and what you like to do. You also may want to think about the work conditions that you may be entering into. If you're someone who really likes to work independently and alone, you may want to consider that and look at the career opportunities that are available in that field of study. Maybe doing something with game and fish or wildlife management, maybe working in accounting where you would work independently. But if you're really someone who likes and is energized by working with other people, then working alone in a cubicle or out on the plains, studying and doing a sage grouse count may not be for you. You may also want to take a look at what type of a lifestyle are you hoping to have. If you're pretty much a person who likes that routine of 8 to 5 and likes having weekends off, that may influence your career choice as well. In health sciences, sometimes those positions are staffing facilities that work around the clock, 7 days a week. And a lot of times when you're first starting out in those career fields, those undesirable shifts may be the ones that you end up working. So think about what you love and what you would never do. And those will guide you as you're selecting your particular program of study. A very wise person once said that if you love what you do, you'll never work another day in your life. And that's truly about not just making a living, but it is about making a life. How do you want to spend the next, what could be potentially 40 to 50 years in a career field, and how would you like to spend that time? We know that people will go back and get retooling and have to update their skills. And so whatever you choose to do now isn't necessarily what you may be doing 10 or 15 years from now, but it's probably going to be in the same area or pathway, if you will, And we want to make sure that as you select that pathway or that program, that it's something that when you come to the end of your studies and the end of your certificate or your degree program, you're going to be excited to go out there and to take on that industry or that career field. If it's something that just does not excite you and you're not interested in, keep looking until you find what that passion or that energy is. And hopefully you've discovered that while you've been in high school. But if you haven't, not to worry, there are lots of opportunities to make that discovery when you get to that college campus as well. And your career guidance office at the college or the university or the institution that you're going to be at will be more than happy to help you in taking some of those interest inventories and deciphering what some of your interests may be. Don't be afraid to ask. It's always better to ask those questions than to end up spending 2 years studying something and then discovering that it's not something that you would like to spend the rest of your life doing. So with that, Jim, do you have any questions or any comments that you'd like to make on?
No, I think this is a nice segue into what I was going to add in terms of cost of the education, and I think you really hit on a really important point, and that is investigating careers so that you can make an informed decision about what you're going to be doing. I just had a conversation with a young person earlier today that was really sad about the fact that he spent a year at the wrong institution. He didn't do his homework, and so he's looking at the college that I work at right now, and is so excited. He wanted to do something different, and he pointed out to me that you know what an expensive mistake he made by not doing his homework ahead of time, and he pointed out something that that just really hit home for me, and that is that he has spent a year of tuition, fees, room, board, $28,000 at the institution that he was attending. Didn't like it. It was just not the right fit. And then he pointed out something that was just profound, and that is that year that he spent at the institution that he really shouldn't have gone to in the first place because of not doing his homework, he also is losing out on an entire year of earning power. And he's going into diesel technology. And if you look at some of the salary statistics, $50,000 to $70,000 starting salary. So 50,000 plus 28 that he spent at the university, that's a $78,000 swing. That's a lot of money. So when we talk about how college can be really expensive, there's a perfect example. And this student pointed that out to me today.
That's a great example. Erin, did you have anything you'd like to add before we move on to Jim's?
No, I love the two examples, the anecdotes given.
Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and move on, Jim, to your presentation.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Erin. I really appreciate working with you here this evening, and it's a testament to those of you that are online that this is exactly what you want to do, is your homework, your career investigation, and looking at what's going to be a good fit for you. Well, at the 2-year level, essentially what you do is you learn the essentials, the practical training that you need, and then you catapult right directly into your career. Erin mentioned it earlier that a 2-year degree, an AAS, an Associate of Applied Science, for example, on the technical side, generally takes about 2 years. If you're going to school full-time, 60 plus semester credits, you're going to be taking a lot of hands-on courses in your academic area of interest. So if you're a hands-on learner, if that's the kind of learning that you thrive in, boy, oh boy, a 2-year technical college is going to certainly meet that need. You're going to spend lab-intensive learning with instructors who have industry experience, not just teaching experience, but they've worked in the industry and can bring that real-world experience into the classroom. And then, of course, partnering with those lab classes that you're going to be taking in your program of study, we add to that applied general education courses, the courses that are going to be directly applicable to your specific career, your occupation, such as you know, the written and the oral communication skills that are needed if you're going to be a nurse, or if you're going to be a diesel technician, or if you're going to be a pharmacy assistant or a dental assistant. What are the quantitative principles, those math skills, those social and behavioral science skills that you're going to need? So those soft skills and the hard skills that are needed for your success are the critical components of what you're going to receive in your 2-year AAS degree at a community and technical college. Now, the one thing that I want to forewarn you is that just because you go to a 2-year college doesn't mean that your education's over after 2 years. And I'm sure Michelle and Aaron would agree that we're talking about lifelong learning. But the beauty is after you graduate and go out to work in your employer, with your employer, they are going to assist you with the cost of professional development. You know, you're going to be going to seminars all the time, learning new technology. There may be some career certifications that they will have you take on, and they're going to pay for that. Well, so how do we start? How do we begin? And I think most of you have heard of the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. That's a very important component in all of this. And you can get information from your high school counselor and your career center coordinators about where to find that information, and learn more in depth about what the FAFSA does, and what an award letter means at a school, the grants, the free money that doesn't need to be repaid that may be available, loans that are available to you as students, and there's even parent loans as well, scholarships for educational costs, and there's federal work-study jobs on campus. You based on your financial need, you might be able to get a work-study position on your campus. Or at public institutions like Aaron's and mine, we have campus jobs where you can talk with the HR department, and you can apply for it and perhaps get a job on campus. At a residential campus like the campus that I work at, you can save a cost by being a resident assistant and get involved with campus life. And so there's just wonderful opportunities for you to earn income that way and help defray some of those costs. Aaron mentioned company sponsorships. My goodness, what a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. I'll give you just a quick example of one of the programs at our college that we offer, and that's a partnership with diesel companies and sponsorships. So 5 of our 6 diesel programs, for example, are sponsored. So if you're a high school senior right now, and you're interested in being a diesel technologist, or diesel technician rather, if you have a dealership in your backyard and close to where you live, you might want to talk with that sponsor or that business, and they may be able to sponsor you. What does it mean to be sponsored? So let's just give you an example. You contact John Deere or the Caterpillar or the Komatsu or the Case IH dealership in your community, in your area, and you interview with them just like you would a job. And so what you would do is impress them and show them why they should hire you and sponsor you. And when they do, then what you'll do is you'll enroll in the college, and then while you're in college, during the 2 years that you're in college earning your degree, part of your training is going to be on campus, in classrooms, in your labs with your instructors like we mentioned before, but then you're going to be out on internships. And it's a process of in school, out, in school, and out. And after 2 years, when you graduate, you then go to work at your employer full time, and your employer, depending on the agreement they make with you as a student, may pay for some or most of your education. Every sponsoring dealership is a little bit different. So think about that for just a moment. You're a senior in high school, and if this is a career field that you'd like to go into, and again, this is just one example, but just think you'd have your full-time permanent position and school essentially paid for a good share of it before you even graduate from high school. How awesome is that? So check with your local colleges that you're thinking about and see what kind of sponsorship programs that they have. Of course, there's loan forgiveness programs. I've heard it many, many times. When students graduate, they'll go to job fairs, they'll get a position with a company, and that company will offer to assist them in paying off some of their student loans. Some of your states may have loan repayment programs or scholarship programs. I think of North Dakota with our Career Builders Scholarship and Loan Repayment Program. It's an initiative, a public-private initiative, where companies in high-demand careers are helping students with loan repayment and sponsorship. Technical student organizations. I'm sure many of you have heard of organizations, or you're involved with them now. Project Lead the Way, as an example, or Skills USA and First Robotics. Those organizations provide two things for you in terms of the context of our conversation today. One, they're a great way to get a taste of those career pathways, as Michelle was talking about. And two, those organizations have recognition opportunities, such as scholarships and internships. So be sure to check them out. Colleges also may have STEM scholarships available. I think of the National Science Foundation STEM Scholarship, or the Association of Mechanical Engineers. And another area that we don't often think of is NJC 2A athletics, like NC 2A schools, four-year colleges. Two-year colleges also, many colleges, junior colleges, have NJC 2A athletics. We have three divisions in NJC 2A, Division 1, 2, and 3. All three of them are kind of interspersed in each school. So a college may have a D1 basketball team, but a D3 softball team. But anyway, Division 1 and 2 junior colleges may offer scholarship funding for you. Division 3 junior colleges do not. And of course, eligibility requirements may vary by college. So it's something to check out at the college that you're thinking about. I think about a young man that I talked to today who is going to leave high school after he graduates and go into the National Guard. And he's going to have some veterans benefits that are going to be to his avail to help with college. So there's just a myriad of opportunities out there to help keep your costs down and make college more affordable. And in the context of the conversation, I also want to talk about return on investment. I think Aaron mentioned it before about some of the salaries that students are making. My goodness, and I think about placement rates. Check with your local technical and community colleges and find out what their placement rates are. You'll be amazed at the placement rates. And of course, earning power, again, the US Department, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, if you go to their website and you look at information by occupation, I know it will confirm with you that salaries in technical careers are amazingly impressive. And so I circle back around to where Michelle left off, and that was that we talk about, if you find that career that you love, you'll never work a day in your life. There's another saying I've heard too, it's something like, success is not the key to happiness. Happiness, rather, is the key to success. If you love what you're doing, you'll be successful. So if a technical career is your passion, my goodness gracious, attending a 2-year technical college, this might be the ticket for you. It's quick, it's affordable, and I assure you it will be fun. Michelle, Aaron?
I would just add, I understand that we're covering a lot of ground tonight in terms of the array of and sorts of technical programs that might be offered across the different states and systems. Also how to finance one's education, how to pay for an affordable education is still can still be daunting. And so I just wanted to maybe reiterate that at institutions that you're exploring, utilize their student support services and ask those questions about what are the sorts of scholarships that you have that might benefit me as a student. I know that seems somewhat taboo to talk about sometimes. How do I pay? How do I afford? But I promise you, and I'm speaking from experience, I have yet to not have that conversation with the student about paying for education. It is a normal part, and if students don't prompt it, we do, because we know it's one of the 4 pillars of success outside of the culture of our different institutions, the coursework and technical programs that we offer, and how do you continue with the next steps. The other big, C of college access is how am I going to afford it? How much is it going to cost me at the end of the day? So if nothing else, my takeaway for you is please ask us. We're happy to have these conversations about unique scholarships, third-party payers, all of that stuff. Michelle?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that these are some great topics that we can cover in the questions and answers, and we're excited to be able to answer questions for people. There are some in the chat, and I know that Scott's going to moderate that for us, so I will go ahead and put that slide up, and we can give people some ideas and a minute to pull their thoughts together. And we also wanted to make sure that we have our contact information available for people, so we'll put that up as well. So Scott, we'll turn it over to you.
Excellent, thank you. So a lot of great questions coming in for this presentation, and I know everyone here is giving you a big virtual round of applause because you've presented some great information and some great direction, and we do have some good questions coming through here as well. I'll start off with one of the questions on here. That do you have programs that automatically lead to further schooling? They may be joint programs with a 4-year or a 6-year institution. I'll start off with that one. And that's for all of you, so feel free.
Aaron?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we could probably all speak to that. It is a common function of 2-year community and technical colleges to serve as transfer conduits for completion of bachelor's degrees and beyond. I too, like Michelle, was looking at some of the questions that were being asked, and quite frankly, whether you want to do pre-med or you want to do aerospace engineering or architectural technology, we have students start at all of our different institutions and then progress onwards for 4-year degrees afterwards. It's probably going to vary maybe a little bit from state to state, but there's a legislative mandate in Minnesota, which I'm pretty sure is similar across the nation, where 2-year general education is transferable within the public school systems in the state. And then moreover, and I think it was in my slide very briefly, but transfer pathways are a fancy kind of dynamic that's been set up between 2-year institutions and 4-year institutions, where the 4-year accept the coursework that had been done at the 2-year institutions that a student might start their educational journey on. So I guess broadly, yes, that's a common purpose and role of our institutions. Ultimately, that is public information, and so as you're exploring different institutions and different transfer options afterward, in most instances, it's housed in the academic catalog, where you can see those partnerships writ for public viewing and assessment. But Michelle, Jim, anything more to add there?
I was just going to say that we're getting a lot of questions about those, the transferability and 2-year degrees or community colleges. What I would say to anyone that's thinking about whether to go to a 2-year institution to start with or a 4-year institution is that a lot of times those first 2 years are going to be a lot of your general education requirements, and a lot of times those numbering systems are shared between community colleges and your state institutions, and so a lot of those will transfer straight across. Again, it's always important to check with both institutions that you plan to attend to make sure that things are transferable. But if you're going to take English 1010 at the community college or English 1010 at the university, and you're going to pay half the price to take it at the community college, it just is good common sense to take it at the community college. If it's going to be the same exact course number and the same content. It's all about checking out, and comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges. And quite honestly, those first 2 years of general education requirements, if you're looking at transferring on to a 4-year university, can be obtained much more inexpensively at the community college level usually.
Great point. So someone else posed a question in there tell me about the process of being accepted to a 2-year college compared to a 4-year college. Is it the same? Should they be doing the same testing? What are your thoughts there?
Well, actually, a lot of times that does require the same testing. Probably while you're in high school, you will have taken the ACT or the SAT. There may be also some placement tests that you may be required to take depending upon the scores you received on your ACT or your SAT. Every institution has different admission requirements. And so again, it's always really important to check with your local institution, wherever you're thinking about attending. And it's not a bad idea to, if you have several different institutions in mind, to create a spreadsheet of what's required by each one. What is the application cost? Is there an application cost? Are there going to be additional placement tests that you have to take? Are there some credits that you may have earned in high school that maybe the college you're looking at will accept? That always saves you money as well. So lots of different things to consider, and a great way to organize that information is to create a chart, if you will, of those things so that you can really compare institutions side by side on all of the points that are most important to you.
Aaron said that 2-year colleges are open access colleges, which is true, and that's the joy that I get working with students, is that we don't deny students admission. We meet them where they're at and help them grow further. And so when a student applies, typically at a 2-year college, they apply. There may or may not be an application fee. The testing that we're talking about typically is not used to deny admission necessarily. It's used to place you in at the right level in the classes. Some schools, some 2-year schools actually use the SAT or SAT or ACT rather, and some schools may use the AccuPlacer, or you might have heard of a test called the Compass test. Many schools use that, and to find out, where are your strengths, where are your areas of struggle, and where do you need some help, and so that we place you in the right test or the right level of classes for your academic area. And then typically part of the process is we ask for high school transcripts or college transcripts if you're transferring in some PSEO credits or dual credits, or if you've gone to another college full-time before. Those are all brought into the picture, and so that we try to make the admissions process as seamless and as smooth as possible. Agree, Aaron?
Definitely, and the various assessment tests that have been stated, everything from the SAT to the AccuPlacer. Oftentimes, institutions will have concordance tables between those things, so they won't make you necessarily repeat that work. But per Michelle's sage advice, it's going to be very institution specific in terms of that answer and their process. But open access is at the core for sure.
I think all three of you just answered 5 of the questions that were in the queue with great answers there. So excellent, thank you. So I'm wondering about other programs. Are any of you aware of programs that might be geared towards people with physical or mental disabilities?
Well, I'm not sure that I would say that those programs are geared towards individuals with those challenges. But I would say to any student who is looking at attending a post-secondary institution of any kind, if you had accommodations while you were in high school, please make sure you get a copy of those accommodations before you leave your high school, and that you take those to your college campus. There is always an office on campus at every institution that deals with special accommodations. And if you had those available to you in high school, there's a very good chance that those might be beneficial to you at the community college or at the college level. And you'll want to be able to access those same accommodations. So by taking your accommodations into your local college, they will be able to take a look at that IEP or those accommodations that you had, and they'll be able to let your college faculty know about accommodations that you'll be granted based on that IEP. So make sure you get a copy of that before you leave your high school setting.
And when you're visiting your colleges, you'll be able to schedule an appointment with that individual on the campus to walk through that whole process. And you'll find that colleges are extremely welcoming and are here to help you and are excited to help you pursue your career. So absolutely.
Great, thank you. Are any of you aware of ROTC programs at community or junior colleges?
I did type an answer into the chat to that question. It's definitely, again, important to check with the institution, and also check with your local recruiters. Recruiters are really keyed into what different colleges are offering in the area and how that will affect your enlistment or your joining the military. A lot of times for college credits that you've earned before you enter the military, you can also increase your pay grade. For instance, in our area, if someone goes into the military and they've earned their certified nursing assistant license, they go in automatically as what's called an E2. And so that's important to check out as well, because even the military will recognize your hard work at the college level, regardless of whether you have a 2-year degree or 4-year degree or a certificate.
Another thing you can do if you're in the National Guard, for example, is let's just say that you live in City A and you're going to college in City B, but the drive time between your hometown where you have to do your weekend obligations for the National Guard is quite a drive. Well, check with your college that you're attending, because they may have a National Guard office right there in their community that you can attach to. You have to work with your commanding officer, with your home group, and you can attach to that group up in the in the community college that you're attending, and save yourself a lot of drive time and weekend time on the road. It's a wonderful new piece of information that I just gained about a month ago, and it's awesome.
Excellent. How about someone's asking about AP credits? Are those transferable into your colleges?
Yeah, great question. As Michelle has stated a few times, and just, it's just a good best practice. It's always going to be the receiving institution that's going to make the determination about how credits will be received and transfer in. But in general, advanced placement, international baccalaureate, the whole acronym soup of higher education. CLEP is another one, college level examination program. Those are great ones to ask each institution that you're looking at. They can set their own requirements in terms of a score needed on the exam, or whether coursework is sufficient in and of itself. But for the most part, those are all college level sequencing. Again, the individual institution will make the choice as to how it transfers in and what it transfers in as.
Thank you. Someone is asking, what's the difference between a scholarship and an internship? I know we're not covering as much on financial, but would someone tackle that?
Well, I think the quickest and easiest answer is that an internship is actually where you usually go and work with an employer or in a business or industry related to your degree area or your area of interest. And a scholarship is usually awarded on merit or need, and a scholarship does not have to be repaid.
Great, thank you. Just as a reminder, because I see this as a question here, that this session is recorded, and you can go to the website virtual.GoToCollegeFairs.com. When this is over, it'll be uploaded. The recording will change from jumping to the session. Will be a link right to the recording. So that's just a reminder. I see that as one of the questions here. So one of the other questions is do they have the opportunity to do multiple majors in a non-four-year school?
Jim, do you want to start?
Certainly. The answer is yes. I can speak to the school that I work with, and I know others that do similar kinds of programs where, let's give you an example. Let's say that you want to take a 2-year culinary arts program, and you also want to take restaurant management. It's kind of interesting math that a 2-year program plus a 2-year program, the math adds up to 3. The way that we do that, and I think other colleges as well, is that you take the general education classes in both programs are very similar, and so you just add the academic area classes to the second degree to the first degree. So 2 years of culinary arts, 1 year restaurant management, maybe 2 years of auto technology and 1 year of auto body, maybe 2 years of building construction and 1 year of architectural drafting and design. So you can do combinations that work out very nicely.
Great. Aaron, did you want to add to that? I didn't know if you...
Yeah, I was just going to say, I love Jim's examples, and it's even, it's not uncommon for academic curricular sequencing to take advantage of the intro level courses being a certificate in a particular area, and then tagging on as time goes on a diploma in a similar area, so that by the time a student might have earned their associate science and business management, they might also have a supervisory certificate and a project management certificate too. And so I think especially at the 2-year institutional level, we're often very creative in how we make sure that there's a lot of curricular overlap that makes sense, so that our students can have those, not just the 2-year degree, but those employable skills as well. I don't know if Michelle had anything that she wanted to add as well.
No, I think you guys covered it.
Great. Was there anything from the slide that you had provided that that we didn't cover? I think. So you had the question, what are common misconceptions about 2-year institutions?
Yeah, there's a lot of myths out there. Maybe in part spurred on by a certain TV series, as well as other things. But in general, you might hear everything from, my classes didn't transfer, to, my degree didn't apply. And I would just encourage you, again, I think one theme or maybe one takeaway probably all of us would leave you with is definitely building those relationships at the institutions that you're thinking of starting this journey. In many of those instances where coursework doesn't transfer, it's often due to a mismatch in curriculum, so like if you went and you had a certificate in a very specific skill or trade, it might not transfer well to an accounting program if you decide to switch gears later in life or pick up a different sequencing, although maybe it'll count in the elective coursework needed for that degree. Likewise, as Jim kind of implied earlier, we meet students where they're at. And so if a student needs to take maybe some coursework to get to brush up and then get to college level in English or math, that's not uncommon. We have a number of students do that. We have robust pre-college sequencing in those areas, but that coursework often doesn't transfer as well. So it's possible a student could take college coursework, but then when you're trying to port it to another four-year institution or even another two-year institution, it might not transfer well. And so I think just maximizing your opportunity to be successful, which really the best way to do that is to build those relationships with student support services at vast array of the different institutions you're all looking at. As we monitor the chat, very different program areas of study, but I think that's a theme we'd likely all share with everyone. So that's one common misconception. I don't know if Michelle or Jim had another that they've heard and want to share.
Well, this is Michelle. I just wanted to add that, it is really important to double check, always double check what's going to transfer and what's not going to transfer. But one of the things that I would like parents to really think about and students to think about is that when you enter a university or a four-year institution, that as a freshman, there are what they a lot of times will refer to as their freshman weed out classes. So you may have a poli-sci 1000 class of 300 students, and it's very difficult to get help a lot of times in that large of a setting to establish a rapport with the instructor. And I think that the two-year institutions are a great step from the high school environment where you have a class of 30 students to maybe where you have a class of 50 to 100 students without jumping into that class of 300. And especially when you're looking at general education requirements, again, if you can take that poli-sci class and only have 50 students and be able to build a rapport with that instructor, that faculty member, I think that you just have such a higher quality experience than if you just happen to be one in a group of 300 trying to get the same content and material. So I would encourage anyone to consider the two-year degree option first, and I think that that's really huge in setting your student up for success long term.
I talked to a student the other day and she said to me, she said, "Oh, I can't wait to start school because I'll be able to take the classes that I want. And when I take classes that I like, I do better." Powerful.
It is. It is. Well, I want to thank our panelists for doing such a great job on this expert presentation entitled "Not Your Grandparents' Career and Technical Education." Just the experience that you brought to everybody here and that you were willing to share, we really appreciate. So again, and thank you also for putting your information up here as well. I know a lot of people were asking about the recording, and they were also asking about the presentation itself, so that they may reach out to you directly to get a copy of your slides. But Michelle, Jim, and Aaron, thank you once again. So remember that you can come back to the event page at any time to watch the recording. And I also remind you to explore your college options in our virtual college fair. So we have hundreds of interactive virtual booths where you can watch videos, download materials, and even chat live with admissions representatives from that institution. You'll also find that some booths have a schedule on their own live stream video presentations. So make sure you visit today or come back while the event is still live to enjoy those experiences. So this concludes. Thank you so much. Take care and have a good evening.
Thanks all.